In this video, you'll learn to use the PotterUSA Coil Cutter with the Foredom No. 30 handpiece. First, you'll need to insert the blade into the arbor. The arbor comes with a bottom, a top, and a screw, as well as a blade. The blade does have an orientation that you need to pay attention to. The text printed on the top of the blade should be facing up when placed in the arbor. This will ensure the teeth are facing in the correct direction. So place the blade with the text side up over the central portion in the arbor. Then place the top over the blade. Insert the screw and finger tighten. Make sure the blade stays centered in the arbor. Once you've finger tightened the screw, go ahead and give it just a little bit of tightening with the Allen wrench. Next, you'll need to slide the coil cutter guide onto the No. 30 handpiece. First, insert the bushing for the No. 30 handpiece into the guide and align the holes. Insert the screws into the holes. These will be tightened by hand after inserting the handpiece of the flex shaft. These make sure that this safety guide stays securely over the blade while cutting. You can see the screws come through the holes into the bushing, and that's what will hold the No. 30 handpiece in place. Once you've secured the bushing, you're ready to insert the handpiece. Go ahead and insert the handpiece into the coil cutter guide. Then, before tightening the guide in place, go ahead and insert the blade in the arbor. Now you're ready to tighten the arbor and blade into the handpiece. Secure the arbor into the jaws of the flex shaft. To ensure the blade is centered in the coil holder base slot, remove the top from the coil holder base. Place the blade and guide over the base. The cutter blade should protrude through the slot in the coil holder base top. There should be approximately an equal clearance on each side of the blade. Tighten the set screws by hand and make sure that the blade has remained in the center of the guide. If the blade is not centered in the slot, loosen the screws on the guide and move it in or out to center the blade. Tighten the screws when the blade is centered. This looks good. The blade should be centered within the guide. Don't over-tighten the set screws, just make sure they're firmly holding the handpiece. Now you're ready to cut your jump rings. Before you begin, determine which side of the base you need to use for the size of coil and diameter of wire you'll be cutting. Place the coil holder base in a vise. Never hold the coil holder base in your hand while cutting. Place the wire coil in the groove of the coil holder base. Apply cut lube along the top of the coil or thoroughly coat the blade. You can use a liquid lubricant or a wax-based lubricant, but this will extend the life of the blade. as well as provide better cuts. Place the slotted coil holder top on the coil with the stop facing down and toward the left. Use a thin tool to push the coil all the way to the left until it's up against the welded stop. You want your coil of jump rings to be pushed all the way down against this stop. Tighten the screws until the top is firmly seated across the length of the coil. Make sure not to over-tighten the screws. The top should not bow at all. See here how I'm using a small thin tool, just a small drill bit, to push the coil down against the stop, and then tighten my screws. You want them to firmly hold the coil but not be too tight. Place the slot of the guide attached to the flex shaft onto the coil holder base with the flat portion of the guide sitting squarely on the base. The coil should be toward the left of the blade. Apply full power to the rotary tool and slide it toward the left with a steady, even speed. Don't let the blade contact the coil until full power has been applied to the rotary tool. This is important. Do not remove the guide from the coil holder base while the blade is still turning. After the coil's cut, turn the rotary tool off and wait for the blade to stop. Remove the guard from the base. And there you have it. An entire coil of jump rings cut in seconds with the coil cutter. And that's it. That's how you use the PotterUSA Coil Cutter. It gives you a very nice flush cut for jump rings and does it in minutes.